лузі, червона калина похилилася. Що славна Україна зажурилася. А ми тою червону калину підемо, а ми нашу славну Україну гей розвеселимо. Прийшли наші стрільці січові у кроваві дали, визволяти рідну Україну з московських кайдан. А ми ті ворожі кайдани розірвемо, а ми нашу славну Україну гей розвеселимо. Як повіє буйнесенький вітер широких степів повіє, та й прославить по всій Україні січових стрільців. Стрільців реками тою стрілецькою славу збережемо, а ми нашу славну Україну гей розвеселимо. А ми тою стрілецькою славу збережемо, а ми нашу славну Україну гей розвеселимо.
Hello everyone, I am the Enforcer, and today we'll be going over the 7th day's events in the Ukraine war. Congratulations to the country of Ukraine for surviving an entire week against the Russian onslaught. Many people in the world did not believe that Ukraine would survive this long. Sources such as CNN, however much you can trust them, claimed that the city would fall within 24 to 32 hours of the initial Russian bombardments on the first day. However, exactly 1 week ago, at this very hour, I was on stream and I found out that the Russians were attacked, and this series of streams began covering the events that had occurred during the war. And so I have to say that I'm very shocked at this point that the Ukrainians have made it to a solid week. Honestly, I believe that the Ukrainians may hold for many days, but I never thought they would actually hold for a week at the outset of the war, because the reports were grim, and no one believed that the Ukrainians would survive this long at all. And yet, here we are, 1 week later. The Russians have made some ground, but not enough of it, and it looks like they've already entered their second round of talks. And so hopefully, the second round of talks will result in a ceasefire or a peace agreement, although we don't know about either of those. All I have to say is that I'm very proud of the people of Ukraine. Although I'm not a Ukrainian, I must say that I'm very proud of them for holding up such a staunch and brave resistance against the Russians. We've heard so many stories over the course of an entire week of all of these brave, valiant people who live in Ukraine, the citizens, the soldiers, the politicians, and everyone else in between, and it's just been absolutely awe-inspiring, and it's really something. And so I would like to make sure to point out on the stream that there have, of course, been Ukrainian casualties over the course of this week, and every single one of them should be deemed a hero by the entire world, because these people are doing the impossible in Ukraine. There's no other way to put it, and I just think that these people deserve the highest amount of respect for years to come, and that this story should be told in every single history book around the world, that the Ukrainians held the Russians off despite everyone thinking that they couldn't do so. And so, with that, I'll finally get to the news of today now that I've touted on the Ukrainians a lot. And also I have to give a lot of credit to President Zelenskyy, who has been an absolute hero and a shining star of this entire event to the Ukrainians, because he has not at a single moment faltered in his belief in the Ukrainian people and that they can hold off the Russians and actually get some kind of peace agreement. And for that, in my eyes, he is deemed a hero as well. So moving on, now we will actually cover the news. In the northern theater of Kyiv today, it appears that there was some very interesting developments that happened. It appears that the Russians, largely throughout the entire front, have started to resort to bombardments, and they're not really trying to directly fight the Ukrainians anymore. I'd also like to make a point to mention this 17-mile long convoy, which actually has been confirmed later on. When I first got the information, it was a 17-mile long convoy, and now we know it's a 40-mile long convoy. And the great news is that that happened on day 4, or no, I'm sorry, correction, day 5. And for these last 2 days, this convoy has stalled. And as a matter of fact, I may believe that it is detrimental to the Russian logistical situation in the northern area fighting around Kyiv, because, for one, this convoy is blocking, according to the satellite images I saw, this major road, the P02, that's heading to Kyiv for 40 miles, which is almost the length of this entire highway from Chernobyl to Demir. From there to there, this is blocking the road on almost an entire side, and in some places they've even lined up the vehicles in files of 3, and so they block the entire road. And so what this is going to do to the logistical situation is, because the trucks that are coming from Belarus that are supplying the troops in this area have to use this road. And so this convoy is making the up and down traffic down this road have to take a 1-lane route. And so these trucks are having to slow down, go around each other, because they're all having to share 1 lane on up and down traffic. And so the logistical situation has been further hampered by this convoy. And on top of that, the Russians have thrown in a whole bunch of extra equipment, even at that they now have to take care of along this highway. They have to try and feed all the soldiers that are, operating these vehicles. They also have to make sure that these vehicles eventually get fueled and can move again. And so now they have stretched this logistical situation in the north that was already thin to being practically non-existent. And you're going to start seeing that the Russians will start to be bogged down heavily up there. I'm not even going to say that as speculation. That's practically hardcore fact at this point with how logistics works. I mean, they threw a whole bunch of stuff at this to try and get this thing done and over with quickly, and it was a stupid blunder on their part, because now they've cost themselves probably this entire area. And for the Ukraine's benefit, they have thrown it for themselves at this point, sending that convoy in. The Russians have. And so I think that I believe, really, to be honest, I'm trying to figure out how to say this well and in a very good way, but I believe that the Ukrainians will hold on to Kyiv forever now, due to the convoy that is now stuck in the middle of this highway. So moving on from that, now we'll actually start covering the events that have been recorded today. First off, we have a the aftermath of a heroic sacrifice, much like the first few days of fighting when a Ukrainian soldier gave up his life to blow up a bridge. We can see in this picture that another bridge has been blown near the area of Kyiv, and the destruction of it was quite resolute, I would say is the best word for it, because both sides of the bridge have been destroyed and will no longer be able to be used by either sides. A good thing for the Ukrainian defenders, a bad thing for the Russians. I'll just show y'all the video and let y'all see what you think. As you can see, the Russians will no longer be using that bridge or even have a chance of doing that. Another thing that we have is down here near the area of Bucha and Irpin. There's been a lot of developments in Irpin today. First off, we have seen that there were some Su-25s operating in this area, and it appears that the Su-25s were shot down. Here's the picture footage. Apparently that's been deleted by the mods of the Reddit thread that I'm using for that picture and footage. So we'll move on to the damage from the fighting in Irpin. There's been a decent amount of damage there today. It appears that a lot of residential areas have been destroyed due to artillery barrages. I'll just show you all the video and let you all see the damage for yourselves. As you can see, the damage is pretty severe. It's suggesting that there's a heavy amount of fighting up near Bucha and Irpin. What I'm thinking is that, not to discuss too much about Ukrainian strategy, but they may be trying to break the siege in that area, and that's all I'll say about that, so as not to continue to elaborate. Meanwhile, we can see that there were some Russian Su-25s operating near Irpin. I'll show you all that picture right now. Actually, I believe it's a video. Yes, it's a video. Let me try and get this a little bit louder. And you see what this was supposed to be. Sadly, it was removed by the mods, but I was going to show you those Su-25s operating over Irpin, and then I was going to show you the evidence of one of them, at least, being shot down over the area of Irpin. So it's a confirmed kill today, because we saw them operating there, and we also saw one of them being the remnants of one that had been shot down in the same area. So that is a confirmed Su-25 kill on the Russians. We've seen the thing from the start to the finish, practically, with them flying over and destroyed in 2 different sets of footage. Meanwhile, we have seen that the heating pipes outside of Kyiv have been destroyed. I believe it was by a missile strike. Of course, this was deleted by the person who posted it, so sadly I cannot show you all that, but the heating pipes have been destroyed, and the fears are that some areas in Kyiv tonight will be without heating. And so, since it is still very cold over there, some people will be in a condition where they might be able to freeze overnight. And so I suggest that if anyone's watching this in Kyiv and you are in one of those areas, it is currently nighttime right now, and I hope that y'all have all gotten to a safer place that is at least warmer, so y'all do not happen to freeze in the night, because that would be a terrible thing, and there's already enough suffering going on as is, and I hope that y'all have been able to find a nice place to ale at least some of that suffering, and at least keep warm through the night. Meanwhile, in the northeastern area of the city, there's been a video of a shell flying over a defense volunteer's head and exploding in the floors above him on the building. I'll just show you all the video. It's rather interesting and very shocking, and it practically speaks for itself.
Все деньги только что заработали терминалы в росте. Вот мы скупились, поразвозились, сейчас еще закинем в метро, и мы кончились, поэтому если сбор денег снова...
So he was very lucky. I don't know if that missile was intended to hit near that area, because the Russians were assuming that there were volunteers there, but apparently it just missed him by a little. At least that guy. I don't know if there was any casualties on the upper floors where that missile hit, but as far as it went for him, he was incredibly lucky, because it appeared that he sustained no injuries whatsoever. So that was a very interesting video, just as the fact that the missile was just right over him. Also, moving on further down into the center of Kyiv, we can see that there was a huge explosion today. Hopefully the video of that still exists. Yes, they claim it was a caliber missile, but I'll just show the video and let y'all see it for yourselves.
Нихуя себе! Ебать! Ёб твою мать! Бля! Это аж возле нас! Ёбаный в рот! Сука!
As you can see, the explosion was rather large. It was actually captured on many cameras, and I believe it was captured by an NBC crew who had just gotten done with an interview, and it exploded in the distance behind them, and they turned around just in time to get the shockwave right in their faces, and then they ran for cover. So it was an incredibly large explosion, because it appeared that they were actually a little bit away from the city center, and I don't know exactly where it struck, but the city center was behind them, and it appeared that the shockwave had come from behind them, so I do not know what was hit, but we do know that there's been a large explosion in Kyiv, and we may get more information on that as morning comes in Ukraine. Also, a rocket landed near the Kyiv railway station. I'll show you all that little video real quick. Apparently that's been removed by the moderators. I'm not understanding why all this is being removed today. Usually they keep this stuff up, and now it's being removed. But nonetheless, a rocket had hit near the Kyiv railway station, the main one, and it caused more damage to the heating pipes. But that was not the primary cause of damage to the heating pipes at all. It was actually outside the city by a little, on its western side. But over here near the train station, another heating pipe was also hit, but it appeared that the missile didn't explode. It appeared to be a dud, but it hit the heating pipes dead on, so it knocked them out of service. So also down here, we've seen a picture of Zelenskyy today. I've heard a lot of reports from Russia propaganda websites that Zelenskyy was seriously wounded yesterday, and some people may have some questions about that, and I want to make sure to clarify those as much as possible. Zelenskyy is still alive. He's giving speeches, interviews, and his reports every day in Kyiv, and I'll just show you all the picture to show you that he is alive and well. There he is right now as the president of Ukraine. He is very dirty, so that suggests that he's been actually out there in the field getting some work done. Don't know what kind of work that is. Maybe he's just commanding troops, and in the process he's getting a little bit of debris thrown on him from artillery barrages and whatnot. But he is still there, and he is still going on. And I have to say that I have the absolute respect for this guy. I believe this is the only politician I respect anywhere in the world, because this guy has done nothing that no other politician has done before in modern history, and that's to actually stick with their country when the going gets tough. I've never seen a politician do that. A lot of politicians haven't gotten the chance for that, but he has, and he's stuck through it. And I have to say that I would do anything for this guy. This guy is really just the most impressive president I've ever seen of any country ever in modern history, because he's just gone above and beyond. I mean, like, I can't even put it into words all the things he's done, said. He just keeps going. He's an amazing guy. He deserves all the credit and the respect in the world. And I believe he's one of the main reasons that these brave Ukrainians just keep on fighting, is because they're led by a brave man just like them. And so, saying that, we'll move on now to the next area of Kyiv down here, where there have been some Russian losses. I'll show you all these, rather self-explanatory. There have been, according to Ukraine reports, 5,840 Russian troops killed in fighting. This is the report as of today. The BBC, which is the ones that sent out this information, could not independently verify these claims, but compared to Russia's claims that only around 585 people have been killed, which according to video evidence looks like a very small number compared to what we've seen in video alone, I would tend to believe the Ukrainian numbers by a long shot. 5,840 troops destroyed, like I've already said, 30 aircraft shot down, 31 helicopters shot down, up to 211 tanks destroyed, 862, they're almost getting into the 900 mark, of armored fighting vehicles that have been destroyed, 85 artillery units, 9 anti-aircraft systems, 60 fuel trucks, 355 miscellaneous vehicles, and 40 MLRS rocket launchers. So the MLRS, for those of y'all who do not know, those are like your grads. Those are like the trucks that have the large pipes on the back of them that launch rockets. That's what an MLRS is. So they've destroyed 40 of those, and it looks like they made a notation that they were captured. So I'm not sure if they're saying that, considering that these are in the losses of Russian forces, I'm not sure if they're saying that 40 of those have been destroyed, or 40 of those have been destroyed and captured, or if they were all captured. But nonetheless, that's 40 Russian vehicles that are now out of their service and either in Ukrainian hands or completely destroyed. So that's very good news for them. Moving on to the eastern side of the city, we can see that we have finally gotten an official report today on how many civilians have been killed over the course of the fighting in the week, and that is 2,000 Ukrainian civilians. At this point, you cannot say anymore, due to those figures, that the Russians are not almost directly targeting Ukrainian civilians. With those kinds of numbers, you have to assume that they are targeting civilians, or otherwise you just could not come up with those kinds of numbers over the course of the week. And that goes all the way back to the point, and I keep on saying this over and over in all my streams, that the Russians, while some of them do not want to be there, they are practically being merciless to everyone in Ukraine, and so I don't really have a lot of sympathy for most of the Russian soldiers. I do have sympathy for the Russian people who are back home in places like Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Perm, and all across the country, really. I do have sympathy for those people because they're out there actually getting arrested and facing serious consequences in Russia for speaking out against the war, and yet they do anyways. But these soldiers that are in Ukraine are committing acts and atrocities that have just been unparalleled in recent history. And so I believe that if anything can happen to Russia or any of these Russian soldiers that are operating inside of Ukraine, I believe that something should happen to them. I believe that the ICC should start looking into prosecuting these people personally. Moving on, we have not gotten any news from Chernihiv today. Chernihiv has been very quiet as of yesterday. There was only one report that came out, and it was just of more destroyed Russian vehicles. So we do not know the current status of the fighting in Chernihiv, or if there have been any losses up there. But as soon as I get information, this map will be updated. So before I move on to Sumy, where there have been a couple of developments today, I'm going to answer a few questions from the chat. Oh wow, the chat's moving really fast tonight, but that's all right. We'll try and keep up with it. By the way, some of y'all may be wondering what happened to Drew, who's been helping me answer a lot of questions. And tonight, I believed that there wasn't going to be a lot of people on asking questions because the amount of people watching the streams have gone down. But if this kind of like speed keeps up in this, we'll probably have him back. I really like the way he asks the questions, and I think he's a very good addition to the server. I just want him to have a break tonight because I know that he's got a busy life. Everyone's got a busy life, and I don't want to keep on like trying to, you know, have him here doing things and just keep on overworking him. I like to try and think about other people, so I was going to let him have a break tonight. But anyways, we're going to start answering some of the questions. You can kill a people, but not an ideology. No matter the outcome, Ukraine will always survive. That is entirely true. And I believe that even if the Russians are able to capture the entire country in its entirety, from Lviv to Kharkiv, they will never actually conquer the Ukrainian people, and they will continue to fight on like almost every country has ever since the beginning of the Cold War, until the Russians eventually just decide to leave. And so if anything does happen that's bad for Ukraine, I want the Ukrainians to know that are watching us, do not fear at all. You will eventually get your country back, whether it be years, decades, whatever it is. Ukraine will come back eventually, but I don't believe that's the case. I believe Ukraine will survive through this war, and they will actually get a peace agreement, and the Russians will withdraw, because nothing is turning out well for them anymore. I think Russia would field Shulish troops with pitchforks if needed. That may be true. I mean, like, there was some pictures yesterday. Well, actually, it was in a stream today because the internet cut out last night. But the Russians probably would, because yesterday they had a really ragtag group get imprisoned, captured by the Ukrainians. I'm not really sure if they were DPR troops or Luhansk People's Republic troops or anything like that. But they were like just dressed in rags, and it looked terrible. So I bet you they probably would. Does India, by being neutral, will pay the price in the future? Does Modi, too, have a neo-fascist mentality? I don't really think so. I don't really know a lot about India's stance. I just know that India and Pakistan have been remaining neutral, which is the first thing they've both done in almost agreement, because they're not really wanting to get involved in either side, and they're just trying to get the best deals for their country, which is respectable in a way. But when you see what Russia's done and violate international law, and they're killing civilians all over the place, you would believe that they would at least take a stance against it. So I don't know what will happen to India, because I haven't really been hearing a lot of people talking about repercussions for the Indians and the Pakistanis for remaining neutral during this entire thing. Rob Batten says, Ukraine will not surrender. The war will only continue on another plane. That's entirely true. I just covered that in another one, but I believe that entirely. And so we'll move on to Paul Harney. They basically already are. That's pretty true. In the captured areas of Ukraine, we've seen a lot of action that civilians have been taking, like protests, pretty much standing in front of Russian convoys and not letting them pass. I mean, they've been putting up a stiff resistance already, and if they capture the entire country, of course, people are going to have weapons still, and so they'll continue to fight back as long as there are people who are Ukrainian and still alive. So there will always be hope for Ukraine, regardless of how the situation goes. So stay strong, Ukraine. Yes, stay strong, Ukraine. Gwen Marie says, I am here, Ukraine. If you're Ukrainian and you were here, thank you so much for being here. I've been doing the news mostly hoping that y'all would watch, and hopefully a lot of y'all understand English really well, and I'm not butchering this really bad, because I really appreciate that y'all are here. This is pretty much the reason I've been doing this. Foxy Wolf Meerkat, have you heard about Kherson's apparent fall and contested status? Yes, I heard about that yesterday, actually. I had said that Kherson had fallen on day 6, and the Ukrainians were launching a counterattack to take it. If you're watching CNN, which has been talking about that all day today, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I don't like to draw in other people's channels or news channels, that are actually mainstream, but I feel, and hopefully this isn't just me, that CNN is almost pro-Russian, because they almost get all of their statistics and information from the Russians alone. They kind of like say a Russian side, and they're just hardly borderline supporting the Ukrainians. They're like, wow, they're really holding their ground and all. But I mean, like, you know, it's just going to be senseless death. I mean, like, they might as well just give up now. That's almost like their message. And I feel like that's the worst message to send out, because the Ukrainians are holding very well. And disparaging messages like that should be condemned by the entire world. I believe that the government at this point should come out and start speaking about what CNN is trying to subliminally say, and shoot it down, because it's just wrong. It's wrong to sit there and say that a country that's fighting for its sovereignty and for its very life, it should just lay down its arms because of the amount of suffering that this war is causing. You know, it's almost like CNN's falling under some kind of appeasement. It's like back in the day, they would have been the people saying, well, let's give Germany Austria, and let's give them the Sudetenland as well, because we really don't want that loss of blood that would happen if otherwise we were to tell them no and they were to invade them militarily. We wouldn't want that. That's almost what CNN is like. And, you know, there's problems with other news channels. I'm not just, like, giving them a whole bunch of heat and letting everyone off the hook. I see things wrong with a lot of news channels. Like, I'm not going to go over them all, because that'll start delving into American politics, and I try and do that as little as possible, because we're focusing on a war here. We're not trying to make this about America. This is about Ukraine and their people, and so it'll stay that way as long as this war continues. So I won't cover that too much, but I feel like that's kind of the way they're leaning. So anyways, the courage of the Ukrainians is like no other. Let's go. That's entirely true. The Ukrainians are just valiant, brave people, and I cannot say that enough. I wish I could go over there when this war is over and just meet all these people. I wish I could meet every single Ukrainian and shake their hand for being such the brave people they are. Quite a few Canucks here. I don't know what that is. India better join the team. They have conflicts with China, a warm war. That's true, yes. I don't really know why India is staying neutral, because China and Russia have kind of aligned themselves into their own sphere. And so I don't know why India is trying to stay neutral in this, because they actually have interests against China in the Kashmir region. So I don't know why they're staying neutral. Slava Ukraine. Yes, that's very true. Slava Ukraine. Please focus on the logistics and tactics Ukrainians can use to mitigate it. There's not a lot you can focus on with Ukrainian logistics. They don't really have an air force to work with to airlift things to anyone. They only have like a large, well, a decently large for their size country fleet of trucks. And so I believe the best thing that the Ukrainians do, if you're talking about combating the Russians kind of like indirectly, is to just attack their supply convoys. They're already stretched thin, and if you destroy them just a little bit further, they'll be non-existent. They'll just be in shambles. Let's see. Yes, Ukrainian military abandoned Kherson. They did, kind of, but they did launch a counterattack yesterday, and I do not know the status of it. Once again, I got to remind everyone that CNN is about 12 to 16 hours behind in reporting, and most mainstream news networks are, but CNN is the one that reports on it almost exclusively all day here in America. So while they're saying that now, it could be the truth that the Ukrainians have already halfway recaptured the city at this point, so you never really know. And so while the Russians are in control of it, as far as I know at the moment, that may have changed at this point, but that's nothing more than speculation. Putin has has a lot of money embezzled from his military. Yeah, that's kind of true. I don't really know about that, but I wouldn't doubt it. But that's nothing more than speculation on my part. This is the news I look forward to every day. Thanks for the great news, and DD. I don't know what DD is, but thank you so much for the support, man. I'm very thankful that everyone supports my channel, but more importantly, I wish that y'all support Ukraine much more than my channel. And so there's a link in the description below, and it will take you to a area where you can look at multiple funds that are set up to help Ukraine. I'm not affiliated with any of them, but I believe that if you were to help them out and send them money, it would be for a very good cause. And so I highly suggest that all of y'all do that. And instead of asking for merch or anything from my channel, I'm not going to make merch about this war. I feel like that's pretty much war profiteering. I believe y'all should go, and if y'all want to spend help give money to anything, y'all should be giving money to charitable causes. So support Ukraine as much as you can. Glory to Ukraine, yes. While Kherson is a sad loss, the Ruskies have paid a steep price in material and time for it. Yes, it cost them a whole entire week and several thousand soldiers and thousands of vehicles to just lay claim over Kherson. And you know what? I don't really know the actual population of Kherson. I know that the area of Berdyansk is about 110,000 people, but what is the population of Kherson? Let's pull that up right now and see. Population of Kherson. Let's see. It has been declining over the years, actually. It's down to 289,000. But that is a much larger city than the rest of them that the Russians have captured so far. So I guess they kind of get a little bit of credit for taking it, but it was kind of inevitable as well because they had pretty much already taken it on the first day. And the Ukrainians and the Russians had just kind of been flipping the control in between each other from day to day. The Ukrainians would push them back across the bridge. Then the Russians would come back in. They push back through. You can see that there's been multiple dots around here ever since day 1 and day 2 because the day 1 and day 2 dots are the green ones. And so, saying that, you know, it was kind of like a matter of time until the Russians eventually kind of laid claim for it for a little bit longer than 24 hours and got to say, aha, we control it now. But that may be changing at the moment. And the other thing that was really important about them taking Kherson, if they were to really desperately push anything, is that they have forces already at Mykolaiv. And so they had to reconnect the forces at Mykolaiv to Kherson, or otherwise they would have just starved out and lost all of their offensive abilities right then and there. We'll also cover this development here in a bit once we move down to that area at the front. So what else we got? Zelenskyy 2024. Zelenskyy will not be running for a second term, according to him, at least before the war. He said that he believed a president should only run one term, and considering how much of a man of his word he is, I believe that he will only run one term, which he already has, and he will step down at the end of it. Pavel is a I'm going to tell everyone about Pavel. I can't stop telling everyone about Pavel. Pavel has gone to Ukraine to fight for them. So let's see what he's got to say. Good evening, my American friend. I made it through my first day, but it's a shit show. Can't do much with an AK-47 against missiles or bombs, but I am still alive and well, stationed inside of Kyiv. Well, good job getting there, Pavel. I'm glad that you're there, and I hope you survive and everyone around you stays safe, and I hope that you keep the Russians back. You're a hero and inspiration to everyone in this chat. He's been here since day 2 telling me that he will be going to Ukraine, and he's finally there, and so I'm very glad for him that he is there. And if everyone and everyone who's watching right now, Pavel is the role model guy. Pavel is the guy who's going to help save Ukraine. As a guy who isn't even a Ukrainian, I believe that's what he said a while ago on the first day or so. But I gotta say, what a guy! I mean, like that's a great thing that he's there, and it's an amazing thing to know that he's actually made it into Kyiv and he's helping defend Kyiv. So very good on him. I'm very thankful that he's there. I've seen a lot of propaganda coming from both sides of this conflict. How do you discern the truth? Reports of national defense members committing terrorism, as well as what we know Russia has done. Well, for one thing, I only report things that have verified locations. So I don't just report things like you know, like Ukraine has summoned Michael the Archangel, and I don't say things like Russia has destroyed the Ukraines entirely. I don't say anything like that. I just report on hardcore facts that could be backed up by videos for the most part. Like everything you've seen so far, all of these little dots have videos attached to them, and so it's like hardcore documentation. There's really no way I can refute it because you're looking at it in a video, and there was also a location attached to it, which then I pinpoint on a map. And that's how I operate my news, so that way there's not a lot of additional propaganda information floating around in a way. So that's how I kind of get through the propaganda on both sides. Although it still looks like, honestly, even removing the propaganda, the Ukrainians are doing incredibly well. So that being said, I'm going to answer maybe a few more, and then we're going to move on. Is it possible to NATO intervening using drones? And if Russia asks NATO, says they already had them, we know nothing. Well, yeah, kind of, because they're already doing that in a way. Turkey has given Ukraine more TB2 drones today. I believe they gave them about 4 or 5 more, and so they're already doing that in a way. So they're not even having to lie and say we know nothing. They're literally just giving them to the Ukrainians and admitting that they are. So in that regard, I guess that kind of answers the question. And the last thing, real quick, we'll answer Jamel. The fact that Ukraine will have to come to a ceasefire/peace agreement to preserve its sovereignty, how do you see Ukraine being divided, if at all? Well, to answer the quick question, I don't see Ukraine being divided anytime in the future. I believe that the only thing that Ukraine will have to do if things really start going south for it in the next few days is say that they recognize the regions of Donetsk and Luhansk as separate republics, and then they could get some kind of white peace. But I believe right now they will be able to get some kind of peace agreement that pretty much says that anyways, but I believe they won't even have to recognize those two regions. That being said, I'm going to move on to the rest of the news around the front lines. And so, moving on to the area of Krolovets, we've seen that some Russians have gathered some rather interesting new farming equipment to add to their nice-looking John Deere tractors that they have. But anyways, they've captured an anti-aircraft tank that the Russians once owned, but now these farmers are owning it. Also, to give a little bit of quick information, the Ukrainian tax ministry declared today that war spoils that citizens capture, including tanks, are tax exempt. So if you're over in Ukraine right now and you see a tank out in that field and you'd like to have it, but you're worried about the tax exemption on it, don't worry, they're tax exempt. Go out there and grab one. So anyways, I'll show you all the video. They'll be able to use that to great effect on the fields next year during the harvest. Moving on from that, we'll be moving down to Konotop, which has had a very wild development today. We have seen almost a World War II-esque style rallying of the city by the mayor. It was absolutely inspiring. I don't even know what he's saying, but the absolute emotion that he's putting into this speech is just the most impressive thing I've seen. It's another line leading line situation like Zelenskyy leading Ukraine. This mayor is leading the proud and defiant people of Konotop. So anyways, I'm going to show this to y'all and just let it speak for itself. This guy is a great orator, you can tell.
Вони нам поставили умови зараз. Якщо ми починаємо супротив, вони розносять місто артилерії. Якщо за, воюємо.
А что ты не хотел вчера палить?
Кто за те, чтобы воевать?
Конечно.
Воевать!
Конечно,
Кто
ебать.
за те, чтобы воевать?
Конечно.
Почекай! Сука, я за те, чтобы воевать! Я за те, щоб воювати. Рішення, послухай, рішення приймаємо всі разом, тому що артилерія на нас наведена.
So as you can see, the guy is into what he's saying. And what he was saying, I don't know exactly his wordage, but he was asking the citizens if they want to resist the Russians or not, and they all agreed that they wanted to. And it was just such a powerful delivery of it. It just shows you the fervor that's all across the entire country, even in the areas that Russia claims is Russian-speaking and want to be controlled by Russia, which is including this area. And it just shows you that that these Ukrainians are resilient people. The army entered that area later today, but I wasn't able to get any news as to what happened about that. But we do know that the citizens are going to be hostile against the Russians, so we'll see how that develops on the 8th day. But at the moment, we do not know the actual developments of that right now. And so I'm going to move down to Sumy. There's only been one development in Sumy today. Sumy has also gotten a little quiet. Maybe there's just been a slowdown in the fighting today. I'm not really sure. But along with Chernihiv, nothing has happened there as far as everything today went. So what we have is that war souvenirs are tax-free. I've already covered this, but the Ukrainians declared all spoils of war tax-free. And so a Ukrainian man was seen picking up a missile and just taking it home. And I have to show you all this. It's nuts. I mean, like, the missile is a live missile, and he just picked it up out of the ground and started walking home with it. I mean, it's kind of wild. I don't really know why he'd pick up the missile. It could explode, you know, at any minute. Yet he decided that he wanted one, and so he got it. And so the Ukrainians aren't even going to file taxes on him. And the next time the Russians plan to do this thing, this guy will just have a missile in his house. He'll bring it up to probably explode or something like that. And, you know, the guy is just going to have a missile for however long he just wants to have it, I guess. So that's really interesting to me. And also another thing is that before I get to Kharkiv, which has had some developments happen today, I'm going to answer some more questions and see what else we got. Russia turned Kharkiv into a pile of rubble. They are. I mean, like, that's not really a bad thing. It's just what happens in war. So I don't know if you're trying to say something pro-Russian or not, so I'm just going to leave that alone. If I can get your email, I can send you some videos and pictures from today's chaos. My email is actually in my About section of my YouTube channel, and so if you want the email, just send it to that one, and I'll take a look at your videos, because if you've got some videos that you can share and I can show on stream, I would be more than happy to show them. I'd be proud to show what you've been doing today. Pavel, I have 3 MMA friends that went over to fight. Good job, thank you. That's a very good thing that 3 MMA fighters have gone over there to fight as well. I'm very glad that everyone in the world is showing their support. I try and show my support through the stream, and I hope that it's helping a lot of people out with the information as far as the war is going. But I'm glad that people are also going over there to fight too. It's a good thing that the mods are recognizing that Pavel's around and still alive. Pavel, keep up the good fight. I'm glad that Pavel's becoming a big guy in this chat. He's a very good hero. I believe that he's doing the best thing. He's fighting for the right cause. And I just got to say, I got a lot of respect for Pavel. I wish I could meet him in real life someday. If you make it through this war, I'm going to see about that. I'm going to see about having you on here, or meeting you in real life and doing something with you there, because you're just a cool guy, you know, to be able to go over there and do this sort of thing. I think really highly of you. Justin asked, what's up? Oh, nothing much. We're just going over the stream. That was my biggest shock last trip. The roads got a lot better. Okay, interesting. Does Ukraine have military personnel on the west side of the country keeping weapons, getting weapons from NATO? And if so, why are they not trying to help break the siege around Kyiv? I don't believe that is the case. I believe they have border guards around there that help get the ammo over. But I believe that it's mostly a NATO effort. Like such as Polish train drivers or maybe normal Ukrainian train crews take over the trains, because it's mostly being transported by train and truck, and they just drive it through Ukraine to where it needs to go. I'm not really sure about that though, because it could be targeted since the whole entire country is a war zone. But I believe that that may be how it's operating, but that's nothing more than speculation, so take that for what you will. Let's see. The mud is a factor too, bro. That's very true. Mud is a very big factor in where armor can operate. And as you can see, the armor is operating in a way that is conducive to that kind of thinking, because they only keep to roads. And you can see wherever they go, they're staying to major roadways due to logistical reasons. And also tanks can't operate on anything rather than a road for the most part. You know, because they say, oh, tanks can, you know, move over terrain such as grass and mud and stuff. But even at that, they really can't do it well either. And so a lot of them get bogged down, and we've seen a lot of examples of that. You can watch previous streams if you want proof of that, where tanks have been abandoned by the Russians because they got bogged down in mud. And so mud does play a very big factor in this war and how it's fought for the Russians. I'm glad everyone's pouring out support for Pavel. Pavel is a guy, and I'm very glad that he's getting the attention he deserves in here. Let's see, Jamal said, second question, any credence to reports of members of the Ukrainian militia force that was armed with no due diligence committing crimes also accused of murdering fellow Ukrainians? No, I don't have any reports of that. As far as I know, the Ukrainian militias are fighting inside of their cities for their lives. So I don't know if you're trying to point out that the Ukrainians are doing bad things, but I haven't gotten any reports of that. So let's see. Is Ukraine winning this or not? Am seeing conflicting. Is Ukraine winning this or not? Am seeing conflicting reports. Ukraine is holding. And for a country on the defensive, holding means you're winning. So at the moment, yes, they are winning. We'll move on to the next question. Maniacal Putin as the personality in which he has to win. I do believe he may use nuclear weapons. I'm not really sure. I'm on the fence on that, and anything I say one way or another would be pure speculation on my part. He has proven that he's become unpredictable in the last few weeks, so he may or may not. Who knows? Imagine gaining like 600 views out of nowhere. I can't see the video right now. All I see is the live chat and my map, and you know, so I just look at that. Enforcer almost elaborated too much. I elaborate a lot. I'm sorry if I go down rabbit holes sometimes, because I'm just very into trying to get this news out as much as possible, that sometimes I do get a little too detailed. So I'm sorry if I'm getting too detailed for some people. Let's see. Keep playing, explosions happened. I don't know what that's talking about, but I think you were talking about one of the videos. But it was only one explosion. If I cut out a video, usually it's because the actual part that should be seen has already happened, and then the rest of the video is kind of like filler. Let's see. What a waste of time and money plus innocent lives lost. War never solves anything. Humans will never learn. Well, I mean, you know, it's not really like it's Ukraine's fault or anything, you know? I mean, Ukraine is fighting a defensive war. They are trying to survive the best they can. And so, because of that, you know, the war is necessary for them. It's necessary for their nation's survival. And if they don't fight this war, they will cease to exist as a people. And so, you know, war is necessary in a way. I mean, you know, you can say that people never learn, but war is kind of the way of the world, even if there was a better way of doing things. Well, the coverage I've seen, they're still defending their land nicely. That's the same thing I've seen. For the most part, it looks like Pavel may have been saying something else, but I'm not really sure if he's saying that just in the moment or not. But we'll see as information comes out in later days. And also, Pavel, still, if you can still send me those videos, I'd be very appreciative of that. Let's see. Newsman reporting massive power outage in Taiwan. At the moment, I'm not covering Taiwan, so I really can't attest to that news, so I'm going to have to move on. How's Ukraine surviving this massive attack? Sheer will. Their firepower compared to the Russians, because it's actually very comparable as far as the ground forces go. And then also, finally, the Russian incompetence, because they're having a lot of incompetence in terms of their battle strategies, their logistic chains, and all that stuff. Let's see. Maybe a few more questions, and then we'll finally move on to Kharkiv. Let's see. Unity. Okay, good. And we need to blow up Nord Stream 1. I don't really know if we can do that. Probably shutting it down would be better. But maybe. I'm not really going to talk about that because I don't really know a lot about Nord Stream 1. I just know that Nord Stream 2 has been shut down. And so I can't really say anything beyond that. And so now we'll move on to the news around Kharkiv. We've seen that there's been some Russian destroyed equipment near the village of Fesky. We can see that equipment right here in the pictures. As you can see, it's been a decent amount of equipment destroyed, tanks and trucks, both in the same. Some of them appear to have been abandoned. This one appears to have burned out. And that's pretty much it. It's really just a destroyed convoy on the side of the road. It's normal run-of-the-mill stuff for the Ukrainians at this point. They're destroying vehicles left and right. Let's see, what else do we have? This one was really funny. I had to show this. Some Ukrainians took a joyride on a captured Russian tank near the city of Kharkiv. I'll just show you all that because it's just hilarious. And they just look like your average people. So anyways.
Все получилось! Ебашим, блядь, на танке, блядь! Охуеть! Слава Украине! Славяно, молодцы! Первый ударный танк! Кацапский танк послужит Украине, блядь!
That's really funny. I mean, like, they were so joyous about it, too. It's like they just bought their first car. And they kind of did, you know, they got their first tank. And it's tax-free, too, remember? So they kind of get to take it home and just keep it. Kharkiv, you know, moving on to the rest of the news around Kharkiv. Kharkiv's skies were lit ablaze tonight, nearly, by the artillery bombardments. I'll just show you all the videos. It's a really incredible sight to see that kind of firepower being levied against a city.
Завод Шевченко, Москалевка. Только что истребитель скинул 2 раза.
The firefights around that area are just going... I mean, like, not the firefights, I'm sorry. The artillery bombardments are so fierce that the fires coming up from them, it just light up the sky. It turns the sky into this orange color. And it's incredible that Ukrainians are still in there fighting for that city, even in those conditions. And you have to give it to all the Ukrainian defenders that they are still fighting really hard. There's been a downed Ka-52 near Kharkiv as well, much like the pictures we saw on the first day of the war. This one is, of course, a Ka-52, so it's very similar. But as you can see that the pictures here, it is not in a condition to fly again. Also, it appears that they may have tried to destroy some of the equipment, perhaps. You can see that some of the toggles appear to have been smashed in some kind of way. But nonetheless, the Ka-52 was destroyed around Kharkiv. Also, we've seen some more videos of a Kharkiv warehouse being destroyed by artillery today. I'll just show you all that video. And so you can see that the warehouse has been destroyed. I'm not really sure what kind of warehouses it was. It didn't appear that the explosions were large, but still, it looks like there was an explosion near a warehouse is all that we know at the moment. I'll try and get more information if there is any available tomorrow. So we've seen that the Department of Security has also been hit as well in the city of Kharkiv. We can see the pictures of that right here. The damage has been very severe. I'll just show you all the video. So that was something. I don't know if that'll affect the Ukrainian defense at all. I don't know if that was any kind of headquarters or anything like that for their operations out of the city. But nonetheless, I bet they will hold on very well, because at the moment they are holding on to Kharkiv and it's been entirely besieged. And so I believe they may be able to keep that up for several days. So anyways, bombs hit Kharkiv later on in the day. I'll show you all that video right now. The explosions were rather huge, but they weren't as large as the night before when we saw that some kind of ammo depot exploded, and the explosion size looked very similar to what happened in Beirut, Lebanon in 2019. But I'll just show you all the video. As you can see, the explosion was large. It looked like there had been another bomb drop before that video was taken. So I do not know the status of what they were hitting or why, but we do know the explosions have rocked the city of Kharkiv later on in the night, just a few hours ago. So before I move on to the southern front, where we've had some interesting developments, and then we'll move on to the international news. There's been a small amount of that today. I'll answer some more questions and see what we've got. Let's see. Tanks can't go around. If a tank goes on mush, which is the side of the road, it cannot pivot. If it does this, it will throw tracks. Tanks can only pivot on hard surfaces. Russians are slow to clear the road. That's true. Yeah, all that's very true about tank combat is that if you're on like a slush of like mud and you try and spin the tracks, usually that doesn't end well. So yeah, that's pretty true. Putin will lose if he nukes. Not a good idea. Yes, everyone will lose, really, if there's nukes. Pretty much civilization itself will be destroyed for a short while. So, let's see. Don't denigrate Zelenskyy. You just earned a block from me. Oh, well, I mean, like, I have mods that are very vigilant in their duties. We have Drew, Frost, Latin, Crazy Boy. We have a lot of mods, and so hopefully they're looking over the chat very well and getting rid of the stuff. It looks like they already did too, so thank you to the mods. Y'all are working overtime for me, and I thank y'all so much because you're all helping out with the stream and everything, and it means a lot to me, so thank you so much. Let's see. Ask him a question, he will answer. I'll answer almost every question I can. Hopefully this chat, when I get down to the bottom of the screen, isn't going 100 miles an hour, because I want to try and answer everyone's questions possible. He threatened it unless he spoke again today. I'm not really sure about that. Nuclear war will not save Russia. It won't. He is a crystal ball. If you're talking about me, no. I know a decent bit, but I don't know everything, and I don't want to act like I know everything. I just know enough to report information over YouTube. But I thank you so much for the compliment. That's a really big compliment, and I just really feel thankful for that. Thank you so much. Massive power outage in Taiwan. Okay, I'll try and look into that later. Putin will lose if he nukes. We kind of already covered that, so we'll move on. The fact that Ukraine will have to come to a ceasefire, peace agreement to preserve its sovereignty. How do you see Ukraine being divided? We have already covered that. Just like that fake clip. Wait, propaganda will... Huh, okay. Just like that. Huh, okay. Well... Sorry, but I think you're kind of speaking like pro-Russia stuff there. Give proof Zelenskyy lied about 6,000 deaths. I don't really know what you're saying there, so we'll move on from that one. Irish, please tell me that's a joke. I don't know who he's talking to. When's he did threaten it, he's a maniac and not a good leader. He'd probably do it. I mean, like, maybe he will. That's why I'm really not leaning either way, because I would love to say no, but you know, he's acting so irrational these days. It's like I really can't say no. So moving on. Looks like we've reached the bottom of the chat, and it's moving at a decent speed, but not really. So let's see what we got. Let's see. Yes, Trump would have had, oh, I don't really talk about American politics. Al Jazeera reporter nearly got smoked by the Ukrainian army today. It was sketchy. I haven't seen that, so I really can't talk about it. Ukraine is the most corrupt in Europe. That's why they got stalled in joining EU. I don't really think so. I believe that the reason they got stalled in joining the EU is because of Russia's protest to that. So I don't really believe that's true. Foab bomb, vacuum bomb. No, he wouldn't have. I don't remember a government that isn't corrupt. Yeah, that's true. I mean, like, there is a level of corruption in every government, but you have to give it that, like, while in Afghanistan, when the government was corrupt, when the Taliban started encroaching, you didn't see the leader of Afghanistan stay behind. He got in a plane and left with a couple of $100 million. And so that's why I got to give a lot of credit to Zelenskyy that while there is always corruption in every government, that's almost accepted as a truth and a norm. He's tried to root it out during his presidency the best he can, and he's also staying there and he's leading his people, unlike most leaders would do. So I have to give him a lot of credit for that. And so we'll move on from that. We also have one more thing to cover in Kyiv, is that the headquarters in Kharkiv was struck by a missile. I know I already covered that, but we do have another picture of it, so I'm going to show that to y'all real quick. There it is. It looks like the damage has been rather severe. It looks like all that's left is the walls and the foundation, which is rather unfortunate. And so now, finally, we're going to move on to the southern front. We're going to discuss what's been going on down there today. So, near the city of Lysychansk, there has been an airstrike on the TV tower there. I don't really have any more information than the airstrike. We can see there's a video here of it, and I'll just show that to y'all real quick.
Да, братан, вот только что въебали, нахуй, ебать, пиздец, куда-то попали, нахуй, ля, горит все нахуй. Охуеть. Я в ахуе, блядь. Ебануться. У нас сковородка чуть с балкона не выскочила, нахуй.
So I'll show you all the next video I have of that. I actually have two. Here's the other one. I believe this also shows the tower being hit.
Охуеть, пацаны, ложитесь, Никс, ложитесь. Пойдем, поползли, блядь, нахуй. Данил, тикай на первый этаж. Да, видео скинул. Да тикай.
So what this is kind of telling me is that this area of Lysychansk is kind of close, not really though, to the green area I laid out as one of their objectives, and that is to try and capture the city of Dnipro. So maybe they're starting to look at trying to push out of Luhansk and Donetsk directly, while, excuse me, they also put pressure on the southern area as well through the center to try and push the Ukrainians back to this yellow defensive line. We may start seeing something like that in a few days, but at the moment, I'm not entirely sure, so I'll try and get that information out as things develop. So meanwhile, in the northern area of Mariupol, we've seen that there has been even more damage in Mariupol city during the siege, and it appears that that was deleted by the mods, but it was destroyed houses, just normal residential houses that have been destroyed by artillery. I don't know if there was any civilian casualties there, but at the moment, all we know is that there was some destroyed houses in that area from artillery. We also see that the Ukrainians have put the captured BMPs that I've shown around here several days ago to work. It appears that they are starting to use them for their own needs. So I'll just show you all those pictures right now. As you can see, I mean, they haven't really done a good job at covering up the Z, but I believe that they probably made some kind of notation that this BMP is theirs, but I don't know how they're going to do that and make sure that's a universal thing that everyone knows. I guess they're going to fly a Ukrainian flag off of it. And also they have a picture in front of a Russian armored car. We've been seeing a lot of these get destroyed, so it's a really normal thing for the Ukrainians at this point to be able to destroy these kinds of vehicles. And then we see a group of the Territorial Defense Unit posing in front of the captured BMP that they've got running. So that's a very good thing that they've got a little bit of extra firepower at Mariupol. They are under a siege at the moment, so any equipment that they can capture will be equipment that will help them support the protection of the city. We also have this nice video, it was very good music by the way, of a Ukrainian Marine playing the piano in Mariupol. I'll show you all that video. He played very well, so I'll just leave it at that. So as you can see, he plays very well. Hopefully, he'll make it through the war, and maybe he'll even play some music for the Russian prisoners they'll hopefully capture at Mariupol, and hopefully they can hold it. But I don't really feel optimistic, to be honest. I like to try and make an air of optimism about everything happening in Ukraine, but I don't really feel that optimistic about Mariupol, and I'll just have to be honest. They're in a very bad position. The Russians control the Azov Sea that is on the coastline, and you know Mariupol is of course on the coastline, and now they're being surrounded on all sides by the Russians. So I do not believe that this will end well for the defenders of Mariupol, but hopefully they can hold as long as possible and eat up a decent amount of Russian resources in the meantime. So finally, we have some evidence of the heavy fighting that is occurring in Mariupol, as can be heard in this video. And so it sounds like alone they're already eating up a lot of Russian resources and manpower in that area. And so I'm going to assume that they'll be able to hold that for several days until it falls. But until then, this Russian advance may be halted because they'll have to eat up so much of their time and resources in the area of Mariupol alone. Meanwhile, in the city of Melitopol, we've seen a lot of civilian action that is like directly defiant of Russian control. We've seen that there have been a large protest today in Melitopol against the occupation that the Russians have currently enacted on the city. And I'll just show you all that video real quick so that way y'all can see what I'm talking about. It's actually rather large. I'm glad that the civilians are making a stand for themselves, even when the military has been pushed back a bit to the city of Zaporizhia. They are still down there, and they're still resisting the Russians any way they can. And I'm very glad to see that, because you know that there's hope for Ukraine, no matter how long this goes on, that the citizens will eventually make it too difficult for the Russians to keep control, and they will eventually leave. While a protest doesn't really put a lot of strain on their resources, you know that that will eventually turn into some kind of insurgent action on the part of the Ukrainians. So anyways, moving on down to here, there have been some looters punished in Melitopol today. I'm not really sure why, but we do know that the title says that it was Russian looters. I don't know why Russian looters are dressed in civilian clothes. It may just be that the citizens are having to take law and order into their own hands, and they're having to punish Ukrainians who took this as a time to loot. But nonetheless, I'll show you all the footage right here. You can see that they're being tied to trees. I guess it's some kind of form of public punishment, or maybe just trying to keep them interned for a while, kind of, since I guess they don't have a jail that's under control by Ukrainian police anymore.
Да, вот, мы весело живем, вот у нас, вот с дубинками подмога, вот бьют, видишь, бьют, да, с пистолетами, с дубинками, вот так, вот так. Тут и война не нужна, достаточно просто выглянуть в окно, и уже очень интересное кино. Вот такие белочки у нас на деревьях сидят, видишь? Одна белочка.
Once again, I don't really know what has happened for these Ukrainians to be all gathering around and dealing with these people on their own and taking law and order into their own hands. But apparently it must have been something severe, because they were treating them rather, briskly. So I'm not really sure what has happened for them to do that, but we do know that there has been some looters punished in Melitopol today. And I'm not even really sure if they're looters. We really don't know what they've done, but the title is that looters were being punished. And so that's what I'm going with at the moment until I get some further information on that issue. Meanwhile, up here near the area of Kamyanka Dniprovska, we can see that the Russians have captured this town, which is very close to the nuclear facility that I'll talk about in a second. We can see that Russian flags fly over the government buildings in the city. And so this suggests that the Russians have taken entire control. Once again, this is entirely based off of this picture, so we're not sure if they're in control of the entire city, but it appears that there are no Ukrainian defenses in this area at the moment. It appears that they have moved on to Zaporizhia. So at the moment, That's what I'm going off of. And finally, in this area, before we start moving on towards Kherson and Mykolaiv, which have had some developments today, we can see that there's been a standoff in front of the nuclear power plant. There's been several hundred civilians. Unfortunately, I couldn't get any footage of it to show on stream because most of it had copyrighted music playing over it. But there was a large group of civilians that had set up dump trucks and blockades to try and stop the Russians from getting to the nuclear power plant. And it in fact looked like there was hundreds, if not thousands, of Ukrainians standing watch over the road to make sure that the Russians would not get to it. We do not know at the current time if the Russians have somehow been able to push them off the road and clear the blockades to control the nuclear power plant. But at the last time we saw anything, at least I saw anything, they were still holding that road to the nuclear power plant. So hats off to them for taking the initiative and holding that power plant without even weapons. They're just brave enough to stand down the Russians without anything rather than just their own bodies. And so you got to say that's really commendable of them to be able to do something like that. And I hope that they hold the power plant for as long as possible. Meanwhile, at the city of Kherson, there's been two developments today. There was a man in the city square today who waved a Ukrainian flag as BMPs appeared to stand him off on the other side of the city square. I'll show y'all that right now. Hopefully it has not been removed. Yes, it has not been removed. And so, here we are. So you can see that the citizens of Kherson, much like Melitopol, are still defiant against Russian authority, and I believe they'll stay that way throughout the duration of the war and even after if the Russians continue to occupy this territory. Also, we've seen some more destroyed Russian trucks near the city of Kherson, as this footage shows here. There's been a decent amount of them once more. So I'll just show y'all this. Here's the video.
А що там цей? Що там бінокль? Де там, блін?
Є, воно для фурика десь є. Чому?
Нема нічого, бля, йоб його мать, бля. Горить нахуй все, бля, як йобані матері, бля. Сухпайки, блядь, нахуй. Жратва, блядь. Да.
Да?
Пацани таряться, блядь. Все, що можна, нахуй, пить.
As you can see, the Ukrainians appear to be sifting through the trucks and trying to find anything of value in them, which is a good thing for the citizens of Kherson, because it appears yesterday, you can watch the two parts of yesterday's stream, the day 6 streams. It appeared that the Russians were looting the grocery stores inside of Kherson because they had run out of supplies and they were trying to find any way to just feed themselves. And so it may be very important for them to try and find anything they can, because the Russians will probably steal it straight out of their mouths at this point. Meanwhile, we've seen that the Russians have made it up to the town of Bashtanka today, because we've seen that there's been a decent amount of destroyed vehicles up there. I'd also like to make the note that while we're looking at these pictures, there's been no information that came out of Mykolaiv today, so that suggests that there may be a lull in the fighting there as well, along with Sumy and Chernihiv at the moment. So I'll just show y'all these pictures. So you can see the equipment was destroyed in the normal fashion. It looks like large explosions, probably some kind of drone or air attack, maybe artillery. But nonetheless, the vehicles and the equipment has been destroyed completely. So that's good news for the Ukrainians once more. It appears that they're starting to halt this rogue advance north. I'm not really sure if it's supported by a lot, because it looked like the aftermath of the damage wasn't even in an area of a war zone, because the police were there instead of the military. So that may suggest that it was some kind of breakthrough unit just trying to quickly move through the area, and it wasn't really being supported by a larger force at the moment. But we'll try and get more information on that. And before I move on to the international events, because we've had about 4 of them, or 5 of them today, I'm going to try and answer some more questions. So we have, let's see. I doubt this would happen. This would have happened. And I don't really talk about American politics in here. This is about the war. I'm not really trying to support one party or another. I don't know why people keep on trying to drag in the deaths of thousands of Ukrainians and their daily suffering to try and talk about who would be dealing with a situation better in America. It makes no sense to be using their heroic stand to talk about American politics. It makes no sense. I don't agree with that at all. Let's see. History repeats itself. Humans is a territorial animals. Aliens must be trivial. We look like wild too. Well, who's to say that aliens wouldn't be having wars as well? You know, I mean, like, it's like, what is everyone in the universe going to be peaceful? I mean, like, that wouldn't make sense to me. Nothing in nature is peaceful. Everything kills each other. So I don't really know about that. We were energy. Okay, I don't talk about American politics. Fake only is a paid Russian troll. Please ban. I'll see about having the mods ban that. So let's see. This is giving China second thoughts all day long. They and Taiwan are both seeing what a determined, well-armed public can do. That's very true. And Taiwan has a policy of something, I think it's called every bloody mile, and where they'll pretty much defend every single square mile of land inside of their island. So, yes, I believe that the Chinese are starting to look at Taiwan and see that there may be a lot of issues with trying to invade due to the geography and such. The tank factory in that city will be hard to replace for Ukraine. Yes, but a peace treaty is usually a few years in duration, so I believe that it won't really be that much of a big deal, and I'm sure that there will be an overwhelming amount of international support to help these people out in their restructuring and rebuilding once this war is over, so I'm sure they'll actually be up and running much quicker than we anticipate. Easy website for now. You can look at names and research your own instead of someone telling you. I don't know what that's talking about. Rumor that Ukraine shot down 2 Su aircraft. I believe that's what I covered up in Kyiv, up in the north earlier. I saw a video where Russian police arrested children. Did anyone else see it? The little children in jail. Yes, I did. I don't know if it's up here still. Yes, it is. Here's the picture. This was from just yesterday. Here are the children being arrested and put in jail. And it's just despicable what they're doing to these kids. It's just unbelievable. But anyways, yes, the kids have been arrested in Russia. That's true. More people need to listen to this guy. Hit the like button. Thank you for the support. We must not let history repeat itself. Yes, but it looks like it will be repeating itself due to the stance the world is taking. Can you cover the actions of Sweden delivering 5,000 anti-tank rockets? Yes, I believe that what you're saying is true, but I haven't gotten any information to be able to put down on the map about it. So I believe that'll probably be covered in day 8. But I do believe what you're saying, and I'll just say that there's probably been a lot of support from Sweden, because there's been a lot of support from all the countries around Europe at the moment. And so it wouldn't be a far stretch for me to say that Sweden is also supporting them, because Finland has broken their neutrality yesterday and started to supply the Ukrainians with weapons. So I'm sure that the Swedes were just behind them and followed suit. So I'm sure that they have delivered 5,000 weapons. And thank you for telling me that information, because I'll be making sure to try and look into that. Let's see. Russia brings the modern warfare. They pounded Graz and Syria. Yes, but they pounded them, but they haven't really gotten any results much, rather than in Chechnya, and that's just because it's a small republic within Russia, and they were able to just do it unopposed. You know, like if you look at Georgia, they made progress there just because it's a small country. If you look at Syria, they haven't even made any progress. The American side and the Russian side is kind of at a stalemate right now, so you know, like the effectiveness of saying that the Russians are bringing in modern warfare, it doesn't really mean much. Look at this map. It's covered 7 days of warfare, and the front lines have hardly moved after the first 2 days or so. And so I don't really think that's a really accurate statement of Russia's abilities. I wish they could set up and lay waste to that convoy like the road to hell in Iraq. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, if it wasn't being covered by air support right now, because it's such a large convoy and such a large asset collectively that they're having air support fly over it all the time, the Ukrainians would probably start taking advantage of the situation to start blowing them up where they are. Let's see, Ukraine police station. RIP. Yeah, that's a very sad thing that the police station has been knocked out in several cities. Either they've been occupied by the Russians and they're putting some kind of military police in them, or in Kharkiv it's just been entirely destroyed. According to U.S. Army Worldwide Equipment Guide, Russia only had about 140k A-52s. Yeah, I mean, like, most of their good technology they have a very small amount of. So, you know, to that point, yeah. Also, we're just going to hide that because You know, this channel isn't really about trying to posture American politics. That's not what this is about. All right, I'm talking about the Ukraine war. If you want to talk about American politics, and use thousands of dead people as your leverage in a political conversation, that's kind of despicable to me. I believe that people who do that are the problem with American politics. It's not Democrats or Republicans that are the problem. It's not liberals or conservatives that are the problem. It's the hardcore right and left wing people who believe that no matter what, you can use anything as a jab at the other party. And I think it's very low down to sit here and talk about the thousands of people that have died in Ukraine and sit here and use their dead bodies as almost like tokens in a conversation to just try and get a one-up on someone or to get a jab on someone. That just doesn't make any sense. You know, because who's to say, I'm going to delve into this for a minute, who's to say that Trump would have stopped this? And who's to say that he would have done better than Biden? We don't know because he's not here, and so that's all hypothetical talk. You know, I mean, like, maybe he could have, maybe he couldn't. I'm not going to say anything either way because I don't have any information to back that up. But, you know, I mean, like, that just doesn't make any sense to me, what's being said here. I mean, you know, there's no information either way. I used to actually make current event info news way back in the day, and I did something on Afghanistan, the evacuation of Afghanistan, and I couldn't say whether Trump would have done a better job or not at evacuating Americans out of Afghanistan because he's not in charge, and so it's like a complete hypothetical. I mean, like, people could be as wrong saying anything about that because it's nothing but hypotheticals, as everyone was saying the Ukrainians will fold within 2 days. A lot of people said that, and now we have proof to show otherwise. You know, and so in the absence of proof, I don't like to make arguments about who would be doing a better job, the Republicans or the Democrats, because we don't have that kind of information. There are people in charge right now who are in charge and saying whatever the hell anyone wants to say isn't going to change that. They're in charge, and so you have to try and work with them. You know, you can't keep on trying to just bash each party and try and say, oh, this one would do better. You know, this one would do better at not having thousands of people killed. Look at all these people killed. I'm going to use them as leverage in my conversation. But getting you off of that rant, because I'm not here to talk about that stuff. No, lies, wishes, and propaganda. I don't know what you're talking about there. Let's see. How to find this map. Join the Discord. I have a link to the Discord below. So join that. And down there, I actually have the current up-to-date Day 7 map, and you can just look at it and take a look at it. Russia will never own Ukraine. That's very true. They will not. Map is in the Discord. Glad that someone added that. So let's see. Just found the site. Looks good. Thanks. No problem. No problem at all. Let's see. Now probably only 102 KA-52s left. If you could give me some information to support that, if you could send it in the Discord server, I'd be highly appreciative of that. Massive 2 explosions outside Kyiv lit the sky. Yeah, we covered that earlier. You can actually look at the map and take a look at that instance specifically. I do have it as a link. Let's see. TOS 1. Yes, there's been a capture TOS 1, and the TOS 1s are moving around, but we don't know how much they're being used because we haven't gotten a lot of information or video footage of them being used. Let's see. The Donbass has mostly ethnic Russians that declared themselves independent from Ukraine after 2014. You can't blame the Russians for wanting to defend their people. Well, they were Russian-backed, and everything that happened in Ukraine, in the Donbass and Crimea, was all Russian-backed. So do you really think that that's like a fair statement and assessment that's going on right here? No, not really. I don't believe so. They were Russian-backed. I mean, like, you're going to find support for anything anywhere. I mean, like, you could go into Russia and find monarchists. You know, and you could fund those people and then back them up with hardcore military support, and those people will get some stuff done, you know, at least in the short run. So I don't really know if that's a true statement or not. And they're not really defending their people. That's kind of a pro-Russian statement, so you're going to have to go. I'm sorry about that. Can you explain the map a bit, please? I don't understand. Yes, I can explain the map. So the map is laid out where the days are different colors. Day 1 and Day 2 is all green. Day 3 is yellow. Day 4 is red. Day 5 is blue. Day 6 is this dark gray color. And then Day 7 is this kind of like maroon color. And so I'm trying to categorize everything by day, so that way you can kind of follow where everything's been happening and going. The red lines are the front lines at the moment. The green fields are the areas that I'm suspecting that Russia wants to control or had those as first day objectives. And this area in blue is a secondary objective because the port city of Odessa is very important to the Ukrainians, and so I believe that the Russians would want to try and capture that eventually in the future if they can. So that's all of that information. And now that I've covered a decent bit of questions, we're going to move on to the international events that have occurred today. There were pictures that came out of an unknown ship on fire. We don't know who hit it or why or what kind of ship it is, but you can see in the distance that there is a smoke plume at sea, which suggests that a ship has been hit out there from something. We don't really know any information about that, so I'm just going to move on from that. And now we're going to move on to something interesting that happened to Romania today, which is that a Romania MiG-21 and a Puma vanished. And later on today, I wasn't able to update this article because it was so recent. Another Puma went out there and actually found the charred remains of the other Puma floating in the sea. So no one knows what's happened to it at the moment as far as I know. But here's the article. Well, it looks like it was removed. Oh, here we go. From Charles Lister. It says that MiG-21 vanished over the Black Sea, and then a Puma rescue helicopter was sent out there to search for both of them. And a Puma was sent out to search for the MiG, and then it disappeared. So now they've sent another rescue helicopter, and they're trying to figure out what's happening right now out there in the Black Sea. Meanwhile, in Moscow, we've seen that a grandmother was arrested at a Moscow protest today. As we can see here in the footage, it's rather self-explanatory. So as you can see right there, they're even arresting grandmothers at this point, along with kids. They're arresting everybody. They're even arresting the dogs. I showed that yesterday, and it's just wild. I mean, like they're literally going to start arresting anyone and everyone. It's almost like the Great Terror under Stalin at this point, with the kind of people they're arresting. Just anybody that is posing a threat to the government. And finally, we have some opposition in the government. It appears that the leader of the opposition, which is kind of like the party that's not in charge but is the closest to being in charge, made a statement today, and I'll just let you watch the statement because it speaks for itself.
Не справляется. Путин завяз в Украине. И для того, чтобы справиться, он бросает туда все, что у него есть. Полицию, ОМОН, СОБРы и так далее. Каждый человек, который сейчас выходит на улицы российских городов, каждый человек, который выходит на протест, он отвлекает часть сил Путина от убийства украинских граждан. Ваши 15 суток стоят для того, чтобы не дать убить одного мирного человека. Если стоит, идите на улицу и посидите потом. Я отсидел 10 лет, больше 10 лет, отстаивая то, что я считал правильным. Если вы считаете правильным, чтобы не убивали граждан соседнего государства просто потому, что этому типчику это захотелось, противодействуйте ему. Сегодня выход на улицу – это противодействие убийству людей в Украине.
And so you can see he's got a lot of condemnation against what Russia is doing at the moment. It appears that he's even suggesting that Russians just continue to go out in the streets regardless whether mass arrests are happening or not, and just tie up units that could otherwise be going to fight Ukraine, just so that way the Ukrainians can have a little bit of extra relief in the terms of pressure that is being imposed on them. And finally today, we have our last bit of international news, and that's that the UN has unanimously nearly called for a ceasefire. So we don't know what that's going to entail in the future. Well, that's not the right link, but it was going to show that the UN had unanimously voted for the war to cease. I don't know if that means that the Russians will speed up these talks or not. They might not. There's really not much that the UN can do, because if they try and do anything against Russia, Russia, of course, will pull out the nuclear card and threaten to nuke everyone, and so that'll kind of leave everyone's hands tied. But I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that. The sanctions have been getting severe to the point that Russia's nearly been cut off from everything externally from Russia. So they're not really doing well economically at the moment. And so we'll have to see how that situation develops as it goes. So I'm going to answer as many questions as possible, and we'll see how many questions we got. So let's see. Can people making the accounts about politics, because it's not. This isn't Trump versus Biden. Stop saying XYZ supports Russia, because almost no one does. Thank you very much. I try and make this about Ukraine, not American politics. It's very low down of people to sit here and talk about who would be doing a better job as president while thousands of people are dying, and they're using the justification of thousands of people dying as who would be a better president or not, the guy in charge now or the guy who could be in charge. It's just not right. Can you explain the map? Oh, I think I already did that a little bit, but I'll explain it again. The red lines are the front lines, so that's where the Russians are currently controlling. These maroon lines are where the Russians have been suggested to move, and you can see that there's been dots showing that they have been there, but I haven't got any like verifiable information that they are definitely there. And so I believe they may have just been breakthrough convoys that were trying to make some ground somewhere, but they weren't really trying to hold anything, so those lines are in maroon. The areas that the Russians would probably want to control are in green, so you can see those everywhere. And they've mostly been right, actually. Like, for example, this little area today that was green has now been taken over because it looks like there was a breakthrough convoy of a sort that went towards Bashtanka, which is right at the top of that like proposed plan that they had. The dots are different colors depending on the days of the week. So the green is day 1 and day 2 because I didn't do a lot of like pinpoints on those days. Day 3 is yellow. Day 4, I believe, is the let me see, let me make sure. I believe it's the blue color. Then day 5 is I believe red. Day 6 is the dark gray, and then day 7 is the maroon colors. So I've tried to categorize everything by what happened per day, so that way you could try and get the best idea of how everything's been unfolding around the country day by day, according to this map. Also, some other things about the map is that this area in blue down here is a suggested secondary proposed objective by the Russians. I didn't believe that the Russians would really want to capture this as like one of their hardcore objectives, but if they could get around to trying to launch something that would achieve capturing Odessa, I think they probably would. Although we haven't seen that come out yet, so maybe they won't try and push that as an objective through the entire war. So anyways, moving on to the next question. I hope that answered your question, by the way, about what the map means. So hopefully it did, and if it didn't, let me know, and I'll try and clear up a little bit more about it. What are reliable Ukrainian casualties? Well, we know that about 2,000 Ukrainian civilians have been killed, but military casualties have not been forthcoming. I haven't been able to find those easily, so I really can't attest to the amount of casualties that the Ukrainians have sustained. How do you access that war map? There's a link to it in the Discord server. All you have to do is go to it, click on it. There's no way to edit it or save it, but you can look at it and click on the links. So that way you can take a good look at it. We upload these daily now, so there's a day 6 and a day 7 map, and tomorrow there will be a day 8 map. And since the information is getting really cluttered on this map, we're going to start over a whole new map tomorrow that'll have all of these dots wiped, and it'll be nothing but the day 1 maps, and we'll start over again until it gets back to the end of 7 days, and then we'll publish a whole new round of maps with new pinpoints and all that stuff. Let's see, why doesn't Ukraine send some type of bombers or even drones to that 40-mile-long convoy that's stalled? Because it's currently under air support, so it's going to be very hard for them to do that without some kind of significant losses. Oh, damn. Wow, that chat's really blown up. If they captured Zelenskyy, what do you see them doing to him? They're going to put him on some kind of trial, probably, but I don't believe it'll ever come to that point. This does say something about Russian. Either Putin is allowing this to happen, or he feels he can't stop it from happening. I mean, like, maybe. The whole world can see this convoy and can Google map where the convoy is, but nobody's bombing them. Yeah, that's because of the air support again. They have to have some air support to get to it because it's too far behind the lines in most places for artillery to start hitting it. So, at the moment, it's pretty much safe, but it's not moving and it's not posing a threat to Ukraine. Is it confirmed that 2 Russian MiGs were shot down today over Kyiv? I'm not really sure. I haven't gotten any information about that, but we know that at least one Su-25 was shot down over Irpin today, so maybe that's what you're talking about, perhaps. If it's not, then I don't really know specifically what it is. This is the point. No, it will stop. I don't really know what that's talking about. I'm sorry about that, but I'll have to move on from that. Let's see. Did you see the video of the giant Russian artillery gun being fired with the U.S. Marine in the background yelling orders, eating full Marine Corps gear, yelling in English? I did not see that. If you want to get on the Discord and send a link to that video, I would be happy to look at that. How much do you think it will help Ukraine? How much do you think it will help Ukraine if Georgia joins the war against Russia, if any? I don't really think it would help much because Georgia is a very small country and they have a small military. So I believe, if anything, it would just tie up a little bit of Russian resources, but it really wouldn't do a lot, you know, because the Russians could just send resources that they haven't used already that way and probably deal with that problem. Terribly treated by Stalin under Russian control, finally after the fall of USSR 1991, granted independence and recognized by the world. So you can see why they would fight so for their homeland. Yeah, their story, the story of the Ukrainian people has been entirely one of suffering at the hands of Russians. And so while the Russians say they're trying to liberate them and bring them back under Russia's control, what they're really saying by that historically is that they're wanting to start subjugating and treating these people almost like slaves. Yeah, you know, they've been treated really poorly under Russian control, and that's why they are fighting so hard. So yeah, that's a very true point. When will Elon Musk use his space laser beams to just melt these Russians? I mean, that's a funny thing to say. I think if anything, he's just going to send a large SpaceX rocket over there filled with his alien friends and probably capture the place. We do buy oil from Russia, and it's stupid. We buy a little bit of oil from Russia. Maybe the administration in charge at the moment will start focusing on energy independence as a thing again due to this new Russian threat, but we don't really know. Isn't giving weapons already involving yourself in the war? Not really, because a lot of countries usually stay neutral and just ship weapons around. That happened a lot in World War I and World War II for a bit. So it doesn't really directly involve you in the war. You're just kind of being indirectly involved. Let's see. People in America need to stove voting for they two parties. I don't really cover that stuff. Do you think any country going to help Ukraine? Yeah, there's a lot of countries helping Ukraine right now. Generally, the European Union has come together to offer material support to Ukraine. So in a way, that's help. If you're talking about military intervention, I'm not really sure. A lot of countries are very scared of that because that could escalate that into a nuclear war, which really has no winners in a situation like that. Everyone would get destroyed just about equally. So they're kind of scared of that happening. That is what is so scary. Russia will get away with this because he will threaten nuclear. Awful and scary all at the same time. Yeah, it is. It's much like the Cold War used to be. Sadly, none of us grew up in that time to understand the fear that normal people lived under every day, thinking that nuclear annihilation would be around the corner. But it appears that will be back to the forefront these days, as it seems like it'll be something in the Russian playbook pretty normally. Let's see. Anyone know that's why this war? I don't really know. Never again, Slava Ukraina. Yes, Slava Ukraina. And I'm very glad that they're holding on this long. It's been amazing that they've held on an entire week. So we have to give them a lot of credit for that, at least, because that takes a lot of effort to hold back the Russians for an entire week. Even if they are a regional power, and even if I don't think they're that strong, it still takes a lot to hold a country like Russia back. Because even on paper, if you include the Air Force and all that stuff, they do have a larger force. So yeah, I have to say it's been really something that they've stayed around this long, because no one expected them to, once again. American law, if you give somebody a weapon, you're responsible for that person using it, so why isn't that logic being used with Russia and Ukraine? I'm not really sure if you are from America, because that's not really the law. I mean, you could give someone a gun and you're no longer responsible for that gun. As long as it's not in your name anymore. And that's kind of what's happening here. So I believe you may not really know that much about American gun laws. You may want to read up on that a little bit more, because the American gun laws are a little bit more nuanced than that. The only way that would apply, that statement would apply, is if it's an Article 3 weapon, which is some kind of machine gun or an automatic rifle, and then that would apply. But it wouldn't apply under a normal situation. Russia won't last, no food or fuel for soldiers. That's very true. I'm upset to find out we're still buying oil from Russia when we have oil here. Sanctions should be everything, including oil. That's very true. I'm glad I found this. I appreciate the way you've laid it out and the way you explain it. Yes, I fully agree with you about keeping American politics out of this discussion. Slava Ukraina. Thank you for your support. I try and focus on a non-biased perspective on the Ukraine situation, and I don't believe that bringing in American politics helps out with the discussion of what's happening in Ukraine at all. Because do you see Congress in Ukraine? No. And so for as far as it goes for me, I don't really care about the American political side of things. They're kind of like an external force at this point that's passively doing things, so it doesn't really matter the political situation in America. There's vids showing 2 Russian MiGs being shot down and said that this happened today over Kyiv. Can you confirm this news? I cannot. I didn't see anything about it, but it may have happened. It may have happened in the like during the stream, like when it started or so, because I don't see the news after that. But it may have happened. When U.S. and Ukraine have nothing left for jet fighters, then yeah, they control it. They are smart enough to not fire on foreign aircraft. Has the 40-mile convoy moved? No, it has not moved. It is stopped, dead in its tracks. And they're waiting for some kind of resupply of food or gas or something because they're not able to function at the moment. So right now, the 40-mile convoy has been stopped. They don't take care of their tires properly. Yeah, they probably didn't have them rotated. So, yeah. What map is this, please? Just join the Discord server. A link is in the description below, and there's a copy of it. You can look at it every day. We upload a new one every single day. This is a day 7 map, although I believe on that version it'll say it's still day 6. I'm sorry about that. There was a little typo in the description. But the actual title of it is day 7 and is up to date with all the relevant day 7 information. Let's see. Add the enforcer. Talked to my friend living in Brovany near Kyiv, and she said the Russians are not yet inner city. She hears explosions, but Russians haven't entered. I think your map says differently. Brovany. I think you're talking about Borodyanka. Let's see. Let me make sure. I'm going to type that up on Google Maps real quick to make sure that I'm getting that right. Let's see. Brodany. Brovary? Maybe that's what you were trying to type. Yes, okay, I believe that's what you were trying to type. And she said there's no firing there. Brovany. Brovany. Okay, let's type that in. Brovany. And we'll get rid of the Kyiv Oblast. Because I would like to see if this information is true. If it is, then the map needs to change. Oh, my lord. Brovany. All I get is Brovary. And if that's in the east of Kyiv, and that's what it is, let me know. Join the Discord and make sure to let me know, and I will try and change that information after the stream if it's not true. But as far as I knew, there was a ammunition dump blown up there on day 4 or 5 that the Ukrainians blew up while they were retreating into the city. So if that information is incorrect, please do let me know, because as far as I've known, that has been correct, and the city has been surrounded on all sides, according to the mayor, and also the reports of firefights around the entirety of the city. But if you have any information to challenge that, please do let me know. Exactly, the armies communicate. That's why I hate people when they say Russia controls the sky. Yeah, because it's still contested, and people want to act like just because they believed Russia was supposed to be powerful, they should have just controlled everything. Let's see, at Vlad Gushin. Where's Vlad Gushin? I don't know. Because Russia is wrong. That's true. When will Elon Musk, we've already seen that. Let's see. Oh, there's been more. Let's see. Where were we? Put some links in your Discord media channel. I will try. Let's see. Where was I? Oh boy. There's been a lot of chats. Let's see. I hate to say that. Oh boy, here we go. Here's the guy. This is the guy I've been talking about. I'm not meaning to say anything bad about you or put you down, Taco, but here's the guy who always says this. I hate to say this, but once Russia really decides to turn up the heat, Ukrainian losses will be devastating. But here's the problem. That's just not true. Russia's already dedicated 80% of their ground forces to the current invasion as it is. There's no way they can add any extra forces to that. They cannot add the extra 20%. They have to keep these military bases that are all across Russia running. They also have to be able to police the public because there's protests going on, so that ties up extra BTGs. And they have all this stuff going on. And they also have to make sure that they're ready to respond to anything around the world, because that's part of the military doctrine, is that you have to be having at least some forces somewhere to react to something. And so They've already bore down everything they can. There's been a lot of evidence of T-90As being destroyed around Sumy, T-80 BVMs, more T-90As, Mi-35s being destroyed, Mi-28s flying around the country. They are using the best aircraft in the Air Force. It's simply not true that the Russians are going to bear down any harder than they can. They've already dedicated everything they can to this fight, and it's still not working out for them. So I don't mean to put you down, but, I mean, you know, it's almost a false statement these days because they've already put everything they can into it and they're still not winning. The Ukrainians are just too resilient to be able to be put down by the Russian military. That's just the truth of the matter. Even no matter how much extra they can squeeze and scrape out of the bottom of the barrel, it's just not going to happen because they don't have the manpower anymore to just keep throwing stuff at the Ukrainians. They've already thrown everything at it, and it's all there on the front lines right now. Local civil law does not apply to national forces. Also a source as legitimate, not YouTube. Okay, apparently talking to Geechee? Okay. I think Russia is waiting for this round of talks is over before they push again. I don't know, because we already knew that the logistics was very strained in the northern area. And now we know that the 40-mile convoy has added a lot to it, is blocking traffic, and is requiring constant air support all day long to keep it surviving. So I don't really think that's going to happen. So moving on from that, no USA aircraft have entered Ukrainian airspace. That was in Poland. That's true. I believe my mod is talking about the AWACS aircraft and also the KC-135 tankers. Those were over Poland. Those were not in Ukraine. So to clear that up for everyone. Pavel the Putin's turned into Stalin's, no lie, higher Stalin's relatives, Ukrainians was starved by Stalin. That's true, they were starved by Stalin. Hit the like button. Thank you so much. Thank you all for the support. Also have the jet fighters from the west already in use by Ukrainian pilots. I heard they were being sent over, but then I heard something about they weren't sent over, and I haven't got any information to back up or shoot down the idea that the EU aircraft that the EU had acquired were sent over to Ukraine. I haven't got any information about that at the moment. So, let's see. We've got some more questions here. Do not count on it. Urban combat is brutal, especially for the offensive side. And Ukraine now has insane amounts of anti-tank weapons. Yes, and they keep on getting more and more shipments of them each day and ammunition for them. And so I don't believe that the Russians will be having an easy time with anything. And if Pavel somehow got into Kyiv, it suggests that maybe my map is wrong, and maybe the mayor of Ukraine, well, not the mayor of Ukraine, that was a dumb statement. The mayor of Kyiv was wrong in saying that the city has been surrounded on all sides, because that's what I based this encirclement off of, is that the mayor had declared siege, and he had said the city was surrounded on all sides, and the evidence of firefights around the city backed up that claim, and then President Zelenskyy later came out that day and said there will be no way out for civilians from now on because the city's been surrounded. And so that's why I've been getting this off of. But if Pavel made it into Kyiv, then that means there must be some way in there, and so I'll be looking into that and trying to figure out where the opening is, where are people getting in and out of the city, because apparently there's a way they are. So moving on from that, the talks are useless. Russia just playing along. Maybe not. I mean, like, you know, you do have to consider that they're taking a lot of losses. Their logistics are falling apart. Their economy is collapsing. So there's a lot of reasons for them to start trying to end this war. So I don't really know. Maybe it could go either way. I'm not using American law to justify the war. I'm using logic. Yeah, but I mean, it's not really good logic, because, you know, it's not really sound. It's based off of a false assumption. Let's see. Atanka Lover, this is foolish to think they haven't been trying yet, but have lost millions in equipment and thousands of men. Silly. Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah. 2.5 thousand subs. I don't know. I haven't been watching the video, so I don't know how well this is doing. Black dot on the filter scope. Only a few were made. I don't know what that's talking about, but if you're talking about scope, I would love to see it. So join the Discord if you can. And also, quick note to everyone watching right now: if you like this news and you want to see more of it, YouTube did have a trend of deleting my subscribers at the start, and so they were never notified again when I was streaming. So make sure to join the Discord, so that way you can always be notified when these streams are going up, so that way you can get the most current news on the Ukraine conflict coming out every day at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's see. The talks are just a distraction. They need air support and drive Russia out. Maybe that's true. Putin in Spanish is, oh, I'm not going to say that. I don't know if YouTube would do something to me if I said that, because that is a Spanish cuss word. So, Will the Ukrainian farmers start towing away the 40-mile convoy? Okay, I have to actually laugh at that one because that one's a really good question. You know, just imagine these like Chechens or whoever's in this convoy. They're all in there in this 40-mile long convoy, and then you just see this Ukrainian farmer with a John Deere tractor just hook up a towing cable to the front of these like trucks while the Russians are off in like the woods with a little picnic blanket eating, and then they turn around and all their vehicles are gone and they just run back and they see all these tractors just pulling them off into the woods and to their farms and stuff. Now that would be funny. Yeah, that was actually really funny. Thank you for saying that. I like that. That was a good comedy. Let's see. Yeah, it's going to put Europe in a tough spot, but they will overcome it. Yeah, everyone overcomes everything. So while the sanctions have been tough on Russia and they've kind of been tough on Europe, they will persevere. They'll find out a way to get around it. Let's see. All good, man. Do we have any additional information on the Chechen Ukrainian unit and the American forward observation groups operating in Ukraine? I don't, and I've been hearing a decent amount about it from viewers, but I can't find anything to back it up anywhere. So if y'all want to join the Discord and shoot that information over to my mods and me, who can take a look at that and try and add it in the news, I would love to take a look at that and see if it's true information and if it's something that I haven't been hearing about to add into the news. We should accidentally lose a few tactical air wings in Ukraine. I mean, like, that's a good suggestion. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I can't really say much about that, rather than that's a pretty good idea. A ceasefire is not in Ukraine's advantage. The mud is crippling the tanks. They have to destroy the armor now. Maybe. I mean, like, that's a very good observation that there is mud over most of Ukraine right now. The weather has been somewhat snowy and rainy in places, and it's been making absolute slush pits out of the ground. And so the tanks can't move across it. They get bogged down and they get abandoned, usually in running order. And then when the ground kind of starts to dry out in some of these areas, or it gets colder and it starts to kind of freeze a bit, usually the Ukrainians just wander out there and they grab some of the tanks. That's why you're starting to see a lot of videos of the Ukrainians driving around these tanks. If it ever comes down to it, I would rather the U.S. be destroyed because we were trying to help a friend rather than political nonsense. That's pretty true. I could actually see that, because you either stand up for what's right or you don't, or you cease to exist. That's the way I kind of look at things. You either do what's right or you just don't exist. That's kind of a good way of looking at this, because you know, that's what people thought in World War II. They were like, you know, we're not going to do the right thing and we'll still exist. And then they found out later that in the course of constantly not doing the right thing and just trying to skirt the issue, they themselves came under threat of ceasing to exist, like France and Britain and the appeasements of Germany. And so yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I agree with that a lot. Let's see. Anonymous has hacked and released invading troops' personal information, so they'll be hunted down like the Nazis were. I've heard that. I didn't know if that was true, because I thought that was just so crazy that they got that many people. But if that's true, that's amazing. And I don't really think anything will happen to those Russians. They'll probably return back to Russia and just live there for the rest of their lives. But that's very good to know that everyone will know who the Russians were that invaded Ukraine. This might be Holodomir 2.0. I mean, like, maybe. Georgia, the U.S. state, would kick ass there. You know, just plop down Georgia next door. The people from Atlanta, Georgia, those are some hardcore people, man. They'll take care of business for sure. I mean, like, Atlanta, I've been to Atlanta a couple of times, and you know, you can run into some really tough people in Atlanta. So yeah, maybe. How does NATO avoid war? Obviously can't watch all this happen, especially as it happens, with tech. I don't really know how to answer that question about how does NATO avoid war. I mean, like, they avoid war by really not getting involved in it, I guess. If a U.S. Marine was standing in the background, it could have been from training videos. U.S. military had trainers in Ukraine for years. That's very true. Yeah, it could be an old video. Any word on planes giving to Ukraine? No, not at the moment. I'll be... Like, I heard that they were being sent over, but I didn't hear anything after that was, like, concrete. So I'll be looking into that and trying to see if we can get any updates for day 8 and see if there's anything that's happened with that. So, let's see. I got a few S590 Bobcats results. Well, I don't mean to, like, up you one, gas station bum, but I saw a great offer on eBay today for a T-72 that was being sold lightly used. It's a Russian vintage. But y'all can look at it for about $400,000. It's slightly used and shipping's not included. But as you can see here, the Ukrainians are starting to make a nice little market out of the T-72 tanks being captured. And it is entirely tax-free. So they haven't had to pay taxes on that. That's very good. So moving on from that, your bias is showing, just facts are good enough, lol. Well, I'm not really trying to be biased, but I do like to have a bit of optimism and hope for the Ukrainians because, you know, I mean, like, really, you know, everything that I say that's an opinion is speculation, so, I mean, like, I do kind of have a bias in a way because, well, it's kind of a bias based in fact a little bit because the Russians are doing really poorly, and so there's a good amount of assumptions I can make that in the future, the Ukrainians and the Russians will make a peace agreement just because the Russians simply cannot keep on going. And so, I mean, it's not really like a bias. It's more like a opinion based in the facts of what I've been seeing over the past 7 days. Because one thing that I think you may be new to the channel, one thing that you do not know is that over the course of the entire day, every day, I look at all the information that's coming in from around Ukraine, from everywhere that I can, and then I put the most verifiable and true stuff on this map, and then I show it to y'all at 10 p.m. Eastern time every single night. And so I don't try and show bias. I usually try and base my speculations and opinions and the information I've been gathering for about a week at this point. So moving on from that, let's see. Channel name, what do you recommend we do? Channel name, who's called channel name? Let's see. No one should have nukes. Yeah, but people do have nukes, and we really can't do much to change that now because there's like 5 countries that are allowed to have nukes according to a UN charter, and so, you know, I mean, like, it'll just stay that way forever. Element FA, I can't believe you read the laser question. I try and read every question. Boomers know that fear. That's true. India gets 60% of its weapons from Russia. That's why they abstain. That's a pretty good point. Thank you for bringing that up, because I didn't think about that. I think the global elite would call nuclear war a win for them if it killed many hundreds of millions or billions anyhow. Well, I mean, like, you know, the global elite would probably get killed in the process as well. You gotta remember that, like, the global elite really isn't, like, a unified force of people. You know, I mean, like, that's kind of like a conspiracy theory thing that everyone thinks. But if it was, then why did the Russians target the American elite and the American elite target the Russian elite? You know what I'm saying? You know, so I don't really think that the global elite is like some kind of magical unified force, because if it was, wouldn't it just be smarter for all of them to try and create one country that has no conflict whatsoever, so that way they can try and make the most money off of it? You know, at least that's what I would be thinking that a global elite would try and achieve. Because peace makes more money. Because look at it, if the global elite, let me just go down a rabbit hole here, if the global elite were really in charge of everything, then how come the global elite is hurting the elite of Russia, which are, you know, the global elite? And they are. I mean, like, you know, they're destroying the Russian economy, and so they're destroying the wealth of these oligarchs in Russia, which are the elite of Russia. And therefore, you know, if every single country's elite is the global elite, then they're destroying their own kind, so that doesn't really make any sense, you know, or otherwise they would never do anything that would be harming other elites in their little global circle or whatever. Put some links in your Discord media channel. I think we already are. Any info on Russia-Belarus buildup on Belarus border with Poland and Lithuania? No, not at the moment. It seems like there was a small buildup, and the U.S. responded with a, NATO responded with a small buildup, and that's been it. Is there any validity in Elon SpaceX having Starlink internet satellites available to Ukrainians? From what I've heard, they've actually been working, so in that degree, it's actually been a good thing for them. I believe that it was also Elon's attempt at trying some beta testing on his new product before he releases it to the rest of the world, and I guess he figured out that the perfect place to do that for PR would be Ukraine, because it looked like he's helping him out, but really he's testing a new product. And luckily, from everything that we've been hearing, it's been working, so it's been a good thing for the Ukrainians in the end. I don't believe Russia would nuke anyone. Who? If the world sends forces through the UN or even the EU, if it makes a coalition, who gets nuked? Just France or Germany? Everyone? Well, everyone would get nuked. I mean, like, everyone who would be involved would be getting nuked, and then Russia would be nuked in return by everyone else, because that's mutually assured destruction. I remember the sirens of the Cuban Missile Crisis 3 miles from Washington, D.C. Oh, I didn't know that they actually sounded sirens during the Cuban Missile Crisis, so that's news to me. Let's see. Putin will fail, as did Caesar et tu, Bruta. Oh yeah, that's and Hugh Brutus. I forgot. But yeah, I think he may. You know, maybe he will. There could be private operators in the shadows. Maybe. I grew up in the Cold War. We still had drills in school, hiding under the desks. That was in elementary school in the 80s. We had drills when I was in school. Y'all may know that I'm like in my 20s. But we had drills in school, but we hid under like desks for like school shootings. Really, we kind of like gathered in a corner for that, but you know, that was that. There's no fighting in Odessa yet, right? Yeah, there is no fighting in Odessa at the moment. Let's see, new South Park episodes about Cold War. They're on it already. Russian oil tycoon just found dough from the UK. How far is Convoy from Kyiv? From last I heard, they were about 20 miles away, but they've stopped and they've held the same spot for 2 days, and I believe it's because they're out of supplies. At least that's what the Department of Defense has been saying, is that they've run out of supplies, and now the Russian logistical kind of like situation in the north near Kyiv has just been completely shot due to this 40-mile long convoy adding that much pressure to the already strained logistical supply chain. So pretty much that convoy will probably not move for quite a while. Let's see. DDoS attacks are illegal in most countries. What if thousands of regular civilians all over the Western world would start DDoS attacking Russians, that these people would, authorities, look away? Maybe. I mean, like, maybe they would look away. I can't really say anything either way. I mean, like, maybe they have some leniency because they are letting companies discriminate against people due to their race, if you want to call the Russians a race, and they're allowing them to fire Russians just because they're Russians. And so maybe, maybe. Some people believe that nuclear weapons don't exist. Well, just let them see Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and if they don't believe then I just believe that they're some kind of flat earthers or something, Russia will be no more if they fire off a single nuclear missile. Putin knows better. The Russian military is weak as hell. They're getting embarrassed on the world stage, poor training, equipment, etc. Yeah, that's pretty true, I'd assume. I mean, like, but the thing is, though, is that nuclear weapons really don't rely on a conventional military to back them up. Nuclear missiles kind of just rely on themselves to kind of like assure a destruction of a country entirely, and so I don't really think it'll rely entirely on a military being strong. I think it just relies on the nuclear weapons being of a high enough kiloton yield. Another flight from Baku was escorted by F-35s with cargo to support Ukraine against Russia. If that's true, that's good. They were trying to do that to the school shooter's parents. What? What does that have to... okay, I think y'all are talking about some school shooting that happened in the United States. What does that have to do with Ukraine? I don't understand. I don't see how Starlink helps if they don't have the dish. Oh, they need a dish to use it? Well, then that doesn't help at all. But I heard from some people in Ukraine that it was working. I have a friend over there, and he said it was working. But maybe they have the dish? I didn't know you needed a dish for that. I was like, do you see any advancements in weaponry coming from this conflict? This is the first war I've seen since Vietnam that has two plainly uniform forces fighting an urban war. Well, this war is so short. It's going to be so short, regardless of how it goes, whether the Ukrainians lose or win, that there's not really going to be a lot of development that comes out of it. You'll see some neat little gadgets, though. You'll probably see drones start getting used a lot more, and I'm not talking about the conventional kind of drones that you're seeing. I'm talking about, like, your normal, like, little RC drones. Like you've seen in some wars where they'll strap explosives to them, they'll fly them towards an enemy unit and explode it over them. But I believe you're going to start seeing a little bit more of that. You're starting to see a lot more technology too, and we're starting to see the role that phones play in actually documenting these wars almost day by day, minute by minute, mile by mile. Because you can see that from this map alone, I believe I have like 300 something separate points on it around the entire world. Most of them in Ukraine are pinpointed down to the very region that they came from, or the very part of the city that they came from. And so I believe that's probably going to be the most important development that we see coming out of this war, is that the militaries around the world will start to note the importance of technology and the new kind of propaganda that you can get out through this this new use of phones and like instant uploads of videos to the internet. I believe that'll be the most important thing that comes out of this war. Do you see? Oh, okay, we already answered that. I was born in 1954. Wow, I'm very glad that people of all ages are watching my channel. I'm very glad that a lot of y'all are reaping a decent amount of information. I remember the Cold War and nuclear threat here in the U.S. Well, that's good. I actually had a grandmother who was around during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and my mom was just being born. But I'm not going to get into all that. All y'all need to know is that they were around during the nuclear times. He will not do nuclear. He wants his name in history. He knows his whole country will be gone. He's not that nuts. Yeah, I mean, like, maybe. You know, it could go either way. Y'all know my saying. It could go either way at this point with the nukes, and I'm not going to weigh in either way. It could happen, it could not happen. I don't have enough information to know if he wouldn't, and he's acting unpredictable, so maybe he would. American energy independence and increasing spending on NATO. I'm biased, however, and the enforcer is trying to steer the convo away from American politics. But gas at $4 a gallon is no good. Oh, well, thank you for trying to keep it, like, out of the political sphere of talking about parties. I'm fine if people talk about energy independence and stuff. I just don't want it talked about. Well, I'm fine with y'all really, like, nah, that's really going down a rabbit hole with how like I want politics to be talked about. We'll try and keep politics out of this as best as possible. But energy independence will become an important factor in America very soon, because either we try and figure out how to get energy independence back, which should be rather easy, it's a simple fix, or we continue to see gas prices soar, which will start limiting some of the economic abilities in the United States by a small amount. So we have to figure out how to fix that. Are we willing to take an economic hit by a small margin, or are we willing to, you know, become energy independent again and see economic growth at a normal pace? That'll be something that the current administration will have to try and sort out. What they're using highways in the field being too muddy to travel, start dropping the trees on the road and blocking the roads with cars. See what their own convoys have done to them. You got a 6 mile. Yeah, I think you're saying that if you start laying down trees on the road with the muddy ground combined with that, the convoys will have no way to move. But they can clear trees and cars, it just takes some time. But yeah, you know, for a stall tactic of trying to just like slow logistics even further, yeah, I can agree with that. And I'm going to answer a few more questions. This stream's been about 2 hours at this point, so just a few more questions, and then we'll be calling it a close. We already shot down rush jets with Stingers and ground to air. And you know, that's a good point. You know, talking about shooting down Russians with pretty much like American weapons or Western weapons, if you want to say that, is that we've gone from the hypothetical field that people used to sit there and say, oh no, T-90, you know, T-90 could bounce javelins, you know. Now we've gotten to see how Western weapons work against Russian equipment, and we've seen that Western weapons can cut through Russian equipment like butter. And so if anything good came out of this for the West, we've actually gotten like some free weapons testing for our technology against the Russians. And now we see that our technology is far ahead of theirs in terms of its destructive ability and their protective abilities. So that's a very good thing for us on that part. And so if the West gets anything out of this, it's going to be testing out weapons on Russian equipment and figuring out that even the most modern Russian equipment still isn't strong enough to hold up against Western just standard equipment. So that was a good thing. Let's see. Private defense contractors could be options if not already doing shadow ops, because it's strange of this progress. I guess so. Convoy waiting for their mommies to collect them. I mean, maybe, you know. I mean, I doubt the Russian would allow their mothers to come down there. I bet they would allow the fathers to come down there and shame their kids, you know, for not being patriots of the motherland and all. But maybe. That's only like a 2-hour drive in normal conditions, but I don't know from where. Let's see, and then we'll answer 2 more questions, and then we're going to call it a close. Has Monty been able to get his 3,000 students out? Maybe Russia's natural gas has something to do with India's position. I don't know if they've been able to get them out. Right before I started the stream, I heard that they were urging all of their Indian students in Kharkiv to leave immediately. So I believe that they're in the process of getting them out right now. We'll have to see if they actually do get them out. And the last one from Kyle Fish is not a convoy, it's a traffic jam. A convoy would be protected from the sides. It is a joke of a situation. I don't really think it's a traffic jam, though, because if you look at satellite footage, the other side of the road is completely open, and there really is no traffic jam. They've literally just stopped. And the Department of Defense has backed that up. And, you know, I believe the Department of Defense now a lot more than I did before, because the CIA actually released information that Russia was going to be invading Ukraine within months, and they released that information in like December, and then no one believed them because they've lied about everything so much that no one wanted to believe them. But now they've said something true, and now the Department of Defense is saying that that convoy stalled due to a lack of supplies, and so that would lead me to believe that that must be a true assumption, just based off of all the information. But anyways, I've had a very fun stream. I hope y'all support Ukraine. There's links in the description below. You can go to those and find multiple ways to support Ukraine. If you feel the need to go over there and fight, you can also call a Ukrainian embassy in your country and find out about the process you'll have to undergo to become a member of the Foreign Legion of Ukraine. Also, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you like the content, to make sure that you're up to date on all the information. The streams come out at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every single day. And if you join the Discord server, you can get access to these maps, and you can also talk to me directly sometimes. I am very busy. I have a lot of things going on right now, including this stream, so I won't be able to get to all of it, but I'll try. And I thank y'all all so much, and I hope I see y'all around tomorrow during the next stream. Thank you.